Is the Fujifilm X-T50 really worth the hype? This video is actually about my opinion and thought process after taking more than 1,000 photos and 100 plus videos using the X-T50 as a digital content creator. Roll in the intro. I have been using the Fujifilm X-T50 for the past 3 months and I'm super excited to share my thoughts on this camera. As a digital content creator, I'm always on the lookout for the gear that can help me elevate my game with the least amount of effort. Why not? Who doesn't want to work smart? And I've been itching to try the Fujifilm camera system for a while. The X-T50 is my first mirrorless Fujifilm camera. Statutory warning. This is not a sponsored video. This video is not sponsored by Fujifilm. This video is not sponsored by anyone. This video, if ever it's sponsored, is sponsored by you, the viewers. By viewing this video, by liking this video, by subscribing to the channel, you're actually helping small content creators like me to produce more and more content. I'm very happy to take your feedback if you have anything to share. I used to actually shoot a little bit on my father's Fujifilm camera, but that was an actual film camera way back from 1984. I might have only shot like 10 photos out of it because getting an access during those days to a film camera was not that easy. Coming back to the X-T50, from the moment I unboxed it, I knew I was in for a journey. The build quality is exceptional with clearly laid out dials, tactile buttons, and a solid grip at the same time. It has not sacrificed its sleek and retro modern look. I couldn't wait to start snapping away and see what this camera was capable of. Over the past 3 months, I have had the opportunity to put the X-T50 through different scenarios I film. That is, photos, videos of indoor spaces, of outdoor spaces, daytime, a bit of dusk time photography, and a bit of nighttime photography. The verdict, it's the best no-fuss camera that you can actually own to go ahead and start creating your content as a beginner content creator or someone who's actually shooting casually to capture their memories, whether you're traveling domestic or you're traveling international. But would have really preferred it if it was around the Australian dollar 2000 mark instead of the Australian dollar 3000 mark in combination with the lens I actually have. The lens that I'm currently using on my X-T50 is the 16 to 50 mm f2.8 to f4.8 Fujifilm X lens. The X-T50 has held up to my expectations and in some cases it has superseded it. I have been blown away by its performance. From landscapes to portraits, this camera has handled everything I've thrown at it with ease, and I'm excited to share my experience with you today. Let's grab a coffee or your favorite drink and go through the reasons because of which an X-T50 makes a lot of sense. First, the 40 megapixel crop sensor that can take super clear photos from a sunny day at the zoo to night lights at an entertainment park. You can choose 12 film simulations on the fly by using the film emulation dial. Now, out of these, 9 are fixed ones, which are already there, but you can go ahead and customize 3 of them, the FS1, the FS2, and FS3, to go ahead and bake in a type of film look that you would actually prefer. In addition to the access of 12 film emulations on the fly, you could also program one of the customizable buttons as a shortcut button to access 7 customizable film emulations that you can download using the Fujifilm X app. So you can keep changing this film emulations so that you can get to the one that actually matches with your scene and take some awesome footage of it. You can take Instagram ready high quality photos directly from the camera and transfer it to your phone using the Bluetooth connection and post it from your phone, creating YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels is a breeze, as the X-T50 can take videos from 6K at the rate 24 frames per second to full HD 240 frames per second high-speed recording. Please note that under 6K, it does not offer you open gate recording as XS20 does. But as you can see from this example, the 6K footage at the rate 25 frames per second coming from the X-T50, it's super clean and of good quality so that you can directly use it for your social media content postage. As a digital content creator, it has made me appreciate adding film simulations, LUTs in common people's words, to my photos or video, thereby ensuring the content I produce does not have the digital image look and adds a character to it. Now, this is very important. The importance of these LUTs I've always missed. I've always shot in log for video and just used the regular LUT to convert it into the Rec 709, and that's it. I've color graded few of my videos, but not many of them. But once I started shooting on the X-T50, I started really appreciating using film emulations or LUTs, either way you want to call it, based on the camera system you're actually having. If you have a Fujifilm, you would call it as film emulations. If you're having a Lumix, if you're having a Sony, I'm not sure if it's available in Canon, you can actually choose multiple type of LUTs based on the type of camera model that is actually available, and there you just call it as LUTs. And or lookup table is a standard industry term, whereas film emulations is something that comes with the nostalgia of the Fujifilm digital cameras, because once upon a time Fujifilm, Kodak, and all these guys used to basically produce those awesome films on which all of us have actually taken our birthday photos or videos if you're as old as me. I was able to capture moments with ease at a party, sports event, food, or during travel with a small learning curve. It took me roughly an hour to familiarize with the camera, and it took me close to a week to make it my muscle memory. I would always prefer shooting with cameras with my muscle memory so that I'm not fiddling around with the settings or trying to figure out which setting is where when I'm actually trying to capture the moment. Because capturing the moment is much more important to me rather than actually, getting those fine tuning of settings of here and there. So sometimes when I'm a pickle, I shamelessly use the auto mode in Fujifilm or any other cameras to just go ahead and capture the content, because I might have actually moved between scenes and, long behold, the exposure triangle would be completely way off. And the movement in front of me, the memory would be fast moving, and I did not have enough time to actually calibrate my exposure triangle in the camera. So hence, I would shamelessly use the auto exposure and go ahead and record it. So remember that camera is just a tool to go ahead and actually capture the moments in your life. Doing it for yourself in person. It's just a tool. So use all the functionalities available in the tool and don't feel shy to use the auto mode in a pinch when you want to capture the moment instead of trying to fiddle around with the settings so that you can get the exposure triangle right and then capture the moment, and you'll never know by the time the moment is already gone. And that's one of the things I really love on this X-T50. Just with the flick of a switch, you can go ahead and actually turn this camera into a complete auto mode. No need of moving the dials by 4 dials or 5 dials to reach to that auto mode. Just one flick of a switch and you can start snapping photos or start taking videos and actually be in the moment and capture the moment, and then half the times figuring out how good is your exposure triangle. The layout of buttons is simple, and yet customization is very easy if you would like to do that. See them. Shutter button, top dials, front and back dials, shortcut buttons. In my understanding, there are total 8 customizable buttons available on the X-T50 in addition to the film simulation dial on the left. The showstopper for the camera is the display. I love it and I hate it. I like the half tilt mode in the display because that allows me to shoot photos at a particular angle and conveniently look at the display. Whereas at the same time, I hate it because of its inability to be in selfie mode. So if you're having an X-T50 and you would like to do vlogging or try to take photos in a selfie mode, it's just not possible. You have to just estimate it and assume you're actually there in the frame. The display does not flip. But if you're someone who's actually behind the camera and capturing the content, oh, it's really, really nice. The display with the angles it can actually move is more than enough to go ahead and capture most of the content that I'm actually looking for. But sometimes the low angles are a bit tough because it does not fully articulate out, but I make do of it. Not every camera is actually perfect as usual. You have to work with the quirks of actually the camera, and just to the X-T50 way of trying to do things, then some of the contents that you can actually capture on this camera, it's very, very difficult to emulate the same or replicate them on other cameras. For lovers who take a ton of photos, you can take crisp photos, nostalgic photos, creative photos, and awesome portraits. Daytime, overcast, or night really doesn't matter because the 40 megapixel sensor with a decent amount of dynamic range will actually allow you to capture very good photos. The other cool thing is, in a pinch, if you want a flash, you can always use the inbuilt flash. Yeah, nothing wrong in using flash, but then sometimes I'm someone who would actually prefer not to shoot using a flash. That's just my personal preference. Until unless you're actually shooting in pitch black dark or you're shooting portraits. Two things where flash is always allowed. It has a shutter speed where you can manually vary it between the bulb mode all the way up to 1/4000th of a second if you're using the mechanical shutter, but if you're using the electronic shutter, you can go up to 1/8000th of a second. That's a lot. But I think that's actually at par with any of the Sony, Canon, or Lumix cameras which are actually out there. So you're actually not losing anything by choosing an X-T50. Hello, this is where Editor Harish comes in. The key feature of the X-T50 is the ability to add film simulations or recipes instantly. As I've said earlier, you can have up to 16 film simulations or recipes on the go. This means you can be shooting birds on a standard picture profile but take a landscape in another film emulations. We can even record video in 4K or DCI 4K along with film simulation burnt onto it. But what if you're not having a Fujifilm camera? Don't worry, it's not end of the world. You can be having a Sony, a Lumix. I'm not really sure if Canon cameras can do that, but a close or a similar look is achievable on the footage that you have taken on these cameras, whether that is video or photo, by using LUTs. Now, here I would like to give a shout out to Dehancer. Dehancer is an app which is actually having a plugin into most of the photo editing softwares as well as video editing software. What I'm showing you here, it's very easy to go ahead and actually add film emulations using Dehancer to any of the footage that you've actually shot. Now, you can either convert the base log footage into Rec 709 using the standard LUTs and then apply Dehancer on top of it, and then you can start layering the film emulations on top of it. When you're doing this, in my understanding, that Dehancer would automatically convert your log footage to a Rec 709 footage and then start putting film emulations on top of it. But this is something that I need to check. It's just what I've actually observed. My approach and ability to capture movements in casual environments has had a very notable improvement when I've started using the X-T50, especially the quality. I choose to take more creative shots based on time, capture some amazing 6K footage on the fly because you can just program one of the buttons on the X-T50 to start shooting video mode, although you're actually shooting images, and that could be actually in a 6K 25 frames per second, just like any of my Sony's or Panasonic, obviously. You can shoot 4K and DCI 4K, right? Up to 50 frames per second if you're in PAL or 60 frames per second if you're in NTSC, right, in the camera itself. So that makes this camera, the Fujifilm X-T50, very, very viable for all the digital content creators because you also have a high-speed recording mode which records in the HD definition, that is 1080p up to 250 frames per second if I'm not wrong, or 240 frames per second. I'm going to put it below actually as text. That gives you the flexibility in shooting in two different aspect ratios. One is 4K, the other one is DCI 4K. At the same time, if you would like to know the difference between 4K and DCI 4K, I've actually done a comparison of it using my GH6, and I'm going to put it in one of the cars either on this side or the other side. In terms of recording frame rate, you could actually choose 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, 50 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and the high-speed recordings like 230 or 240 frames per second. Finally, things I wish would have been better in the X-T50. First pet peeve, always and always, will be the display. If the display was actually articulate enough so that we can take it in the selfie mode, maybe, that actually solves a lot of things for me. The second thing is basically this function button actually on the top. It is very small and it's very clustered into a place. I hope it is actually slightly moved somewhere so that it's easy to go ahead and actually press it. Otherwise, sometimes accessing it is actually a challenge. This is really nitpicking and nothing beyond that. Apart from that, the biggest pet peeve I've actually on this camera is the price point it actually goes to. With the combination of the 16 to 50 millimeter f2.8 to f4.8 lens, I bought it for Australian dollar 3,000. If this was Australian dollar $2,000 combination, it's a hot cake. It would beat any other camera, including my A6700, which is actually out there. Especially if you're someone like me, a digital content creator who's always behind the camera trying to capture the content. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to look for being in front of the camera, you would like to have a selfie mode on that, then the display is the only thing that would actually let you down. But you can always have an external display on the hot shoe mount here and connect it using the micro HDMI and still try to get your framing and stuff. But apart from that, I mean, I love this, I mean, this has been always my go-to camera that I would actually picked up for any kind of a casual environment to go ahead and shoot on. I'm not really worried about the single memory card actually there in it. I use high quality memory cards. It's not really a big problem for me. A small inconvenience is the way you would actually access the memory card, especially removing it rather than putting it back in. If you don't have nails, sometimes you would actually struggle, because I struggled a couple of times with my fingers not having nails and removing the memory card. I had to literally ask my wife to do that for me. Apart from that, there's a lovely camera to own. Please do comment below if you want me to try any specific Fujifilm emulations and take some good photos or videos. I'm very much open to it. Please do also share in the comments what is your most favorite film emulation or a LUT that you would always love to go ahead and use, or the most common one you would use on your social media content, whether that is for photos or videos or for both. Do not forget to try out the Dehancer app. I'm actually posting a link of it in the description. The trial version is actually for free. You did not pay anything. You did not give any of your credit card details as far as I know, because I downloaded the trial version without giving any details above there. And the only thing is, I think you would actually getting a little bit of, emboss of the Dehancer logo or anything on it when you try to export out of it using the trial version. But check out all their film simulations and tell me which Dehancer film simulation that you really liked. Some of them really triggered a nostalgic feeling of me, especially the Kodak series of film emulations. Well, until the next video, take care, stay safe, happy snapping.